Welcome back to Mindful Endeavors. I'm your host, New Age Alchemist. Joining us today is Brittany Bailey. Before we continue, as always, we'd like to let everybody know that we're not mental health professionals in any capacity. We're just here talking about the subject of mental health and the outdoors. And if you do need help, we encourage you to seek it. And we also encourage the conversations around mental health and mental wellness to keep going. All right. So, Brittany, welcome on the show. Very happy to have you on. Basically, just found you on Instagram somehow when I was searching the topic of mental health, and your profile is very wholesome, and I think it's definitely like good with what you're doing. So, just if you want to elaborate more on yourself and what is it that you do, then go ahead.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. So, I am a podcaster, a writer, and a digital creator, which is how you found me on my Instagram. And I speak a lot to creators who want to learn more about mental wellness and mindset. I see those two things as kind of separate.
Mhm.
And I have a background in marketing, so I kind of bring all of that together because creators are experiencing all of those things, in their day-to-day life. So I kind of have conversations around all of that, and I'm happy to be here.
Yep, it's actually you're one of the perfect people to have on, and you do have some outdoor experience, so it's not just helping out creators, but you do enjoy the outdoors, and we talked about that off air a little bit of like what is it that you like to do and what have you done in the past. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So you said I know you mentioned the beach, and I consider that to be very outdoorsy, even though it seems kind of different, or I guess you could say but yeah, go ahead and explain your experiences on the outdoors.
Yeah. So I grew up just a few miles from the beach in South Florida, and it was just something. I mean, since I was a kid, my parents would go every Sunday and we would go out to the beach and spend the entire day there, like bring sandwiches and just relax on the beach. So very early on, that was just like kind of part of my life. And then when I got to high school, we would all of us would go to the beach and hang out there. And right around that time, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety, a lot of just like, the unknowns of being a teenager. Where am I going to go
Mhm.
to school? What am I going to major in? High school relationships, all of that. And as I was doing some therapy work and as I was doing some like personal development work, I kept getting asked the question like, okay, well, if you're going to meditate or if you're going to like, find a way to calm yourself down, like think of a happy place. And it was always the beach to me. It was always the beach because there's just this very calming sense about the waves, the salt water, like just everything about it felt very naturally soothing to me. Like just I don't know if it's from when I was a kid or just in general. I know there's like some science to like moving water has like negative ions. So there's some like actual science to it, but for me, it was the beach. And so that's continued on. I'm 30 now. That's continued on my entire life. If I ever really get to a place where I'm like, I need to fully unplug and kind of like hit reset on my nervous system, it's the beach 100%.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where I always advocate that the outdoors could be a great support system. And the beach again, it's the outdoors, it's still outside. And I think to what you're saying about there's some science to moving water. I mean, we all know that just being out in the sun, there's some scientific benefits to that, right? So that all helps. And I think in this day and age, especially the last 2 years with COVID, we were encouraged to stay in, right? So I think mental health definitely took a hit in a very very bad way, and for in it ranged from different ages, right? So and not to mention that we already have ongoing anxiety issues, ongoing self-esteem issues, so it just compounded itself to like I don't know the nth degree. So I think that's kind of like where my experience came in. Like I was going a little bit stir crazy, just kind of staying at home. I moved away from my family. I'm out here by myself, so it was just like, okay, what do I do? And I had to worry about my family back home. So it was stressful all around. But I had one fishing rod that I bought a year from right when the lockdown started happening, and I never used it. And at that time, I was just like, all right, this is a perfect time to just take it out and learn what to do with it. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I
Sorry.
think I really think it's one of those things where it's like, it's basic. Like, oh yeah, go take a walk, go outside, get some fresh air. Like we've all kind of heard those things.
Hmm.
But until you kind of experience it when you're in a place of like nothing else is working, like I've done all the, deep breathing, I've done all the journaling, I've done all that. There really is like such a power to the simple act of like going outside and getting fresh air and just grounding yourself, even in your backyard. Like, yeah, we were all kind of like constrained to our homes, but even just in the backyard, I've noticed it's such a it's such a powerful thing to just get some sun and get some fresh air.
Yeah, and it's good that you say that because I know it's something that comes up when we're talking about the outdoors is just like access to the outdoors, right? So, I mean, not a whole lot of people live by the beach, so I guess we understand that. But I mean, I didn't live by the beach, and I still got to go. Like I had to plan a whole day out of it, but I still got to go. But even just something as simple as going to the park, like just feeling the grass on my feet, like I didn't know it was therapeutic for me back then, but just something about it felt good, right? Just being outside and playing and not being inside the house. So it's one of those things that I think we definitely do take for granted. Just generally speaking, even going to the park for a walk, like you said, just taking some fresh air. I think we know that when you're frustrated or when you're stressed, something that tends to happen is your breathing kind of suffers a little bit. So you have to like calm it down, take deep breaths and stuff like that. I mean, you've heard situations with that. I mean, that's when people have anxiety attacks. That's one thing that they do struggle with. So
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and even like just like I don't know, like it's really difficult because I can't really like say what experience people need to have in the outdoors. You have to really make it your own, and if you're not seeking it, it's kind of difficult. So
Yeah. I I think our bodies kind of naturally to know what they need. Like I know I've done all kinds of research on like, ways to help yourself with anxiety, ways to support yourself, ways to do all this. And there's all kinds of methods, you can do like there's emotional freedom tapping where you like tap certain parts of your body. There's all these different things. But it's funny because there's some things that our bodies are naturally drawn to, like to just go like sit by yourself for a second. Like maybe that's not meditating, maybe it is meditating, maybe there's guided meditation. But I think there's some like intrinsic way that our body, like you were saying, you went to the park and just like were walking around barefoot, like you didn't necessarily know that was therapeutic, but like something about that felt good to you. Like we
mhm.
can often kind of overcomplicate it and be like, oh, I got to find like the right strategy or go, all the way to the beach or all the way here. Like it can be really simple and it can be something that we just let our body guide. Like what feels exciting right now? Does it feel better to go sit in the backyard or does it feel better to go on a walk and do something more active? We can kind of like let our body be the guide and then, go deeper in. But often it can be pretty simple.
Have you heard of the phrase "disconnect to reconnect"?
I haven't, but I love it. Yeah, that's awesome.
I think it's definitely something that we uh, don't realize because I mean, you look at technology; it's so embedded into our daily lives. I mean, we're basically walking cyborgs in some shape or form because we have our phones and we have unlimited information there. So it's something that I think people. One of the things that I do appreciate of that phrase because I mean, it's almost basically true. Like there's a time and place when I just want to like I put my phone on silent or I turn it off and I just go out and fish and you know I mean that's basically what I do nowadays. Like there's times where like I don't want to be bothered. Okay, so for this hour I'm turning it off and all I'm focusing on is fish. And, sometimes I catch fish, sometimes I don't, but I'm out there outside, fresh, a lot of natural like air and everything, and it's just great.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
yeah, it's one of those things like that. I often ask people like, do you think technology has made our lives better or worse? It's not really like there's not really a set answer, right? Like, what's your perspective on that?
Gosh, that's so hard. I mean, I think it's done both, right? It's hard because we can't like split test life, like it's hard to see where we would be if we didn't
Hmm.
have technology. I know I wouldn't have the business that I have without technology and I wouldn't have met you probably without technology, right? Like I've made so many amazing friends and so many amazing connections from technology. I think it's maybe a little bit neutral. It's like what we do with it. It's like money or power or a lot of these things, these big concepts. It's like we can use it for good or we can we can let it lead us, down a path of just being constantly connected and, spiraling into these places. The internet is vast. So we can do great things with it, and we can do maybe things that aren't great for us, or great for the world. I think it's just maybe how we use it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no really one answer, right? Because it's all like a matter of perspective. Like when you're looking at like surgeries and some medical advancements, like yeah, technology is amazing. Well, when you look at social media, that's kind of a gray area because again, it's like you said, like it depends on how you use it, how you consume it, and that's kind of something that we've always, like I don't know, like maybe 90% of my episodes have touched on like social media, different like pit traps, like and how it can deteriorate mental health. And
Yeah.
we look at like we were talking about like earlier, like when we're teens, we already have so much added stress, and then you introduce this medium where like literally nobody tells you how to consume it or at what rate you should consume it, and it just makes things worse. Like
Yeah.
what are your
And I
opinions on
think
that?
I think we might not know too for a little while, because there's like, science, the way that we study things, sometimes it takes a while because we have to see the lifespan of something, or we have to see years of a case study. So we have kids who, like when I was nannying way back in like high school, early college, I had someone who I was watching, she was 2, and she had an iPad in her hands from the time she was 2, and she could get to, there's like a YouTube app for kids specifically. She could like open the iPad and get to that app for kids like immediately, and we would sit down for dinner and she would like have the iPad in her hands. And so like we would have to like study the brain of a kid who's had access to technology that early, and see, what how does that play out, if it has any impact. I can't imagine that it doesn't have an impact, but we'd have to see, what that looks like long term for somebody versus a kid who didn't have access to technology. Like I think it's going to take us a while to kind of see what this impact really really is. But some stuff is immediate, like what you're saying with, teens who are just given free reign on Snapchat and all of these apps. Like they really can, it can be detrimental to some kids, and to some kids it's fine. So I think it's kind of hard to find, the line there for parents probably.
Yeah, one of the episodes prior, I think it was the one right before or 2 episodes ago, we did talk about like how these filters kind of make things a little, they blur the lines of reality and perception and all that stuff. So it's like it really, I mean, we don't really, nobody really tells people or really like educates people on saying like, hey, this was developed by somebody, so it's basically to their standards of what they deem perfect. Like, it's, yeah, I mean, we might have similar tastes and stuff like that, but it's not like it's just one opinion. Like whoever made that filter is that's their opinion, and it doesn't have to be reality. Like, there's beauty in lots of different things and lots of different people. It's just we don't know how to value it sometimes, and we don't. And we're most importantly, we don't know it's there. Like, that's I
Yeah.
think the thing. Like, and we, you look at like how people just trash the environment. Like the other day, I was out fishing on a lake and I caught a fish and I released it, and there all of a sudden a paper cup floated right next to me. I'm like,
Mm.
wow, you know.
Yeah.
So it's really that's it's not like too pessimistic, but it can be a downer, and that's where I kind of encourage people to kind of just go outside more.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
you do have experience hiking though, like you want to share any of your experiences hiking, RVing?
Yeah. So my husband's family, they bought an RV. He camped his whole life. Like that was his family's thing. And I had never camped ever. Like we did the beach and we did all of that, but my family is not, they're not campers.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something very much that he like kind of introduced me to that world. And his family, they bought an Airstream recently, and or well, actually probably more like 4 or 5 years ago at this point, but they bought an Airstream and we started doing Thanksgiving dinner in the Airstream every year.
Oh
And
wow.
so that we would go to, it's so cool. We would go to like one of the state parks, and his dad would do like a fryer for the turkey like outside, and his mom would do all the sides. And it was so interesting to me because typically like holiday season and traveling, were two really high anxiety and stress points for me. Just like trying to plan everything and being away from like my normal routine and the way that I was doing things, like that is just can be really anxiety inducing for me. And what I noticed was when we started doing these trips to the state park for Thanksgiving, I didn't have as much anxiety. Like I would just be sitting by the fire, relaxing. And it took me a couple years to be like, why am I no longer stressed around holiday seasons? And I really do think it was that just such a relaxing and calming environment to just be by the campfire and like you talk to other people who are camping around the same area as you, and you're just like relaxed, like you're eating dinner off of your paper plates, and just kind of like enjoying being with each other. And it's not about did we get the right hotel reservation and who's coming to who and the dinner reservation, like all the other stuff. Like it was just this kind of oasis from the normal craziness of the holiday season. So I've become a huge fan of that now. It's a way that I can travel without feeling the normal stress and anxiety that I normally felt.
And I think it definitely helps when you have a good group of people around you too. I
Mhm.
think that probably makes the biggest difference of all. I mean, it doesn't necessarily like. I mean, I can speak for experience. Like several people like have like that I've been around with, that I've traveled with, make a big deal out of one thing, but at the end of the day, like, did we get to our destination? Did we have fun there? Like, what was the point of you making a fit over that one little thing that we messed up on because for whatever reason it was a mistake? What does it matter? Like, we're still here. It's not like we're still back at home stuck there. We didn't get to enjoy like going out to camping or going out to the beach or you know like I've had a trip when I used to live in California. I've had a trip to Northern California, Pismo Beach. Beautiful, beautiful place. Like Pismo Beach is just gorgeous. And that, I mean, if money wasn't an issue, that's where I'd be
Yeah.
100%. But it was a good trip. It could have been a better trip, but we just had an issue with somebody that there was just something that she did not let go, and it caused a scene. But um, you know, at the end of the day, we reconciled, and it's like, yeah, like it didn't really matter. Like we're still here, happy, and I think they're definitely having just an element of like letting go a lot of different
Yeah.
things and only worrying about the stuff that really can impact your present and your future. Like stuff that's already in the past, like the only reason why you need to look back on it is just to really see how far you've went away from it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, who you're with makes a huge difference for sure.
Yeah, I think just that's kind of like we're going back to social media, where you have to really be careful because it's really hard to really know someone's intentions just by text. And then not to mention, which happens a lot, especially to me because I suffer from foot and mouth syndrome. You say something that you weren't supposed to say, or that wouldn't come off bad if you like see a facial expression, right? Because you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I know they're just kidding or they're not even being serious, but you see it in text, you don't know. And I feel like sometimes humans take the worst possible outcome and go with that
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Like
it's,
have like yeah, having I'm sorry, go ahead.
social media really can exaggerate that for us too, because like you're going back and forth with somebody and you might not know them or their intentions as well, if you're in person with one of your friends or something. So yeah, you're definitely not alone in that.
It happens a lot. It happens even like just via text. Like,
Mm.
it's just like I keep bringing this example where it's like when I talk to people about this offline or online, it's like I've had not an issue, but like one time with one of my friends, I responded with sure. Somehow that was
Mhm.
bad. I was like no, I said sure, like as in yes, I'll pick you up, like because we are going somewhere to the same place together. And she goes, "Can I get a ride with you?" And I was like, "Sure." Like the way I said it right now, sure, yeah. Like no
Yeah.
sarcasm behind it, nothing. Like but somehow it's like, well, we can get a ride if if it's not okay with you. I'm like, no, 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 I didn't mean that. I'm saying like, yeah, I'll pick you up. Like,
Yeah.
geez. And this was like before I even got on social media because I resisted until eventually I caved. And you're talking about like having a business, using social media. I mean, that's kind of where things are going anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. My husband still doesn't have social media, and I have a few friends who are holdouts, and honestly, I get it. Like I really do. I totally get it. I didn't really have one until probably 2015, 16. Um, I experimented in high school, but I get people who want to just stay unplugged. It's, there's the fine line between like, how you use it, like what we were talking about earlier. I think if it's not done intentionally, I 100% get why people stay off of it. I think it can be a really good and powerful tool. And like I said, I've talked to a lot of people and met a lot of people who, I mean, some of my closest friends I've met on social media, which sounds kind of funny, but and they're all over the world. I probably would have never met them otherwise. In my business, I love my business from it, but it took me a while to get here too.
Yeah, that's another thing that a lot of people, I want to say, like creators and stuff, don't realize that it takes work. It really
Mm,
does. Like you want to build those genuine connections, it takes a lot of work. It's basically another full time job. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, there's no way. But like to your point though, like there's so many people I wouldn't have met if it wasn't for social media. And I think my first experience with social media was MySpace.
mm,
So yeah, I did not like that at all. It was just a cesspool of just horrible arguments and stuff. So I was just like, okay, I'm done. Somebody in college created a Facebook for me, but I never used it. And then I tried to use it, but again, another cesspool full of art about people commenting bad things about each other or arguing. So I'm like, okay. And I think all that definitely helped me in the sense that it delayed when I got into social media, like went into like heavily, like the way I am now. Because I think I'm more like I built up like more of a defense for it. So
yeah,
like sometimes like I'll see negativity like some in some shape or form, and I'm just like, okay, like it's kind of like just sitting in a movie theater and just watching the screen go, So
yeah,
which I feel it's great because I mean I have had issues uh in social media, but for the most part, just none of them have really affected me too much. So I think it's great. And going back to what we were talking about, like how there's no blueprint of how to consume it. I think the fact that I was delayed and all that stuff, I didn't just jump on the hype train right away, definitely has helped.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that's a big piece because like teens and kids who are using this, they haven't developed those skills in real life yet necessarily even, like they're reactive still, which is understandable. Like they're still in that phase and that carries on online. So if like you delayed yourself and I delayed myself too, like we kind of learned those skills in real life and could bring them on to online too, which I think is helpful.
Yeah, one thing that I definitely had to learn, and I had to learn the hard way and fast before I did social media, is basically how not to pay attention, not to cave in too much into the argument itself. Like,
Yeah.
I kid you not, like me and my brother would argue over basketball players, basketball teams, like, and almost to the point where we like come to like fist fights. And for what? These teams, these people have no idea we exist. And here we are fighting each other over it. And it's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like there's some people on social, like trolls or whatever. There are some people who just get a kick out of like trying to, you know, stir you up. Or, I had a video go viral and I was washing a dish in the video, and it was, like there was an audio playing and I was just washing this dish, like kind of listening to the audio. And, I got like 95% good comments. People were like, oh my gosh, that's so me, whatever. And then I got just 5% of people like so mad at me because the water was running. Like I moved the dish out of the water while I was washing it and then put it back in the water. And they said I was wasting water and I was like contributing to the climate. And like just, I mean, really, really angry, not just like kind of funny. Like they were mad, mad, mad. And like, hopefully, this isn't how you wash dishes when you're not trying to get attention on social media. Like really
Oh,
crazy
wow.
stuff. And, at first I was like, it kind of took me off guard because I've posted some controversial things and I'm ready for people to say something. But that was like, it was like a funny video that I just wasn't expecting any kind of backlash from. But then I kind of quickly moved into like sympathy in a way where I was just like, that like to be in the headspace of searching for somebody's video to like unload all of like that's pain. Like somebody's in a lot of pain to be like that angry about, it was like a 15-second clip, like that's a lot of pain that someone's dealing with. But it took me a second to get to that like sympathetic place and just be like, that that sucks that that person's in that much pain, and just kind of like move on. But social media it's a weird world. It really is a very strange world.
Yeah, but it's definitely changing the way we are interacting with each other for sure. Like having a simple conversation, just looking at each other's like directly in the eye. Like I feel like a lot of people, like sometimes I'm looking at them and they're looking down, slightly down, just so they can
Mhm.
avoid the eye contact. And
Mhm.
then you have sometimes, like I just recently heard of like the term high functioning anxiety,
Mhm.
which you look at like certain attributes to what that is, and it's like, wait, I didn't realize that. But it's like, okay, I didn't realize that this was a thing, and then now it makes sense why I get like so like sweaty and like
Yeah.
anxious in certain situations like this makes perfect sense. And it's people that oftentimes you wouldn't even know that they are struggling with this because they're so productive and so successful, or they're just keeping busy, right? And it's like, wait, like slow it down.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That is, I think, one positive to social media is it's brought a lot of things to light. And like I know when I was first kind of like getting out into in the anxiety world and like understanding more about anxiety from my peers versus like the only conversations I had had about anxiety before this was with my therapist. Like that
Mhm.
was it. Like I wasn't talking to my friends about it. I wasn't talking to my parents about it even. Like it was like isolated, And then when I got into social media, and I think even the pandemic kind of like created this more because everybody was experiencing to some degree anxiety, even people who hadn't experienced it before. And it was just like people were posting about it and talking about it, and terms like high functioning anxiety like started becoming more mainstream, and people were able to be like, oh, that's something I have. And it brought more awareness and kind of opened some conversations that I don't know would have had or happened before that. So I think that that is one like benefit to social media. I think I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, like you said, how you use it, how you use technology, I mean, a knife can be used to, prepare meals and stuff, or, even grab food, like if you're hunting or whatever, or, it
Mhm.
can be used to be doing other destructive things, which, I don't want to talk about because it's too
Yeah.
bad. But, like, yeah, it's really up to the person. And at the very least, we can at least hope that people will be neutral about things, on social media and stuff like that. Like I've had my issues where I post a picture of a fish and I'm not holding it properly because I keep in mind I've only been like fishing consistently for like about a year, almost 2 years now. Well, basically since the whole COVID thing.
Mhm.
But sometimes I make mistakes, right? So I held the fish, I'm proud because I got a new species. I'm like super proud, super happy about the post, and all of a sudden I get so much hate. It's like, oh, the
Mhm.
poor fish, like it's super sensitive, like it's all grassy because so I didn't have the proper equipment
Mhm.
to really handle the fish. Like I didn't have a landing mat so I can unhook it. I basically unhooked it from the net that I used to grab it, like in the water. But then when I took it
Mhm.
like it was further off the bank to take the picture, it fell out of my hands. So
Mhm.
that's what happened. But obviously, when you see the picture with the grassy fish, and it's like, well, this dude, so many people were just kind of commenting, like, I even said in the caption, "This is my first carp." Nobody bothered
Mhm.
to give me constructive criticism except for one person. So it's the opposite of yours, where it's like 95% liked it
No.
for good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that one person though definitely made a difference because it's like, okay, well, now it makes sense. Now I know like what to get. I immediately bought that landing mat. I bought some other stuff that is, used for proper care and handling of fish, and I took it serious, and it's like I do appreciate that comment because hey, you could have, like, it was almost like a backhanded comment to a certain degree. At least it
Mhm.
started out that way, and it seems that way. And then, but there was a lot of things that I got out of that, so I was like, okay, this is perfect. Like this is the kind of stuff that I welcome and I encourage, especially because if somebody's trying to get into a hobby, I mean, that's kind of why you have like these social media networks, so you can find people to that share the passion for that hobby, right? And so you can learn from them, share your knowledge. You don't want to like just turn people away. Like you
Mhm.
don't like I mean, it's kind of a cliche at this point, but you don't know what battles people are struggling like are facing
Yeah.
with, right? So you have somebody that's getting into the sport of fishing or whatever, and you turn them away. But that was going to be their only outlet. Sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it really does like constructive feedback gives is so that's like how people actually get what they're trying to achieve, right? Like if somebody's ultimate goal is to be sure that, you know, you're doing something correctly so that the fish is whatever, like if that's their ultimate goal, like the way to achieve that is to say, "Hey, you probably didn't know this, but this is the right, this is this or this is the right thing to buy or whatever." Like that actually inspires action, and that's basic human psychology, like fear and anger and hate, like that never inspires genuine action. It can inspire action, right, but not ever genuine action or anything that's positive. So I mean, yeah, it's like if somebody's commenting those hate things, like they actually probably don't really want that outcome. Like they just need to vent, they just need to air their grievance.
Yeah, I mean, and there might be like some superiority complex going on
Mhm.
there too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really hard to really like find out what the reason is for this person to like comment. And I think
Mhm.
that's kind of one of the pit traps that creators do fall into, where especially when you're starting off, is that you're trying to you're trying to find the intent behind every bad comment, and that is just a recipe for disaster when it comes to mental health.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. So, what is it exactly that you help people on, creators on? Because I mean, we're basically building up to or segueing into the other topic that I want to talk to you about. But your profile, your presence.
Yeah. So I do multiple things as a creator. So I'm a full-time writer, and I do copywriting for another brand, and I write all their like emails and their sales letters and all that. And then I have a podcast, Sit with Britt, where I do a lot of mental wellness and mindset chats. So I have people on, and then I also talk just from my own experiences about, what it's like to be a creator. Like I talked about that viral video and how those comments like impacted me. And, I was kind of like gun shy to do the next reel for a second, like, so I talk about the things that just creators go through and kind of the perception of being a creator. Like, are you talking about it with your family, or is it so kind of like, oh, it's that weird thing that you do online? you know so I talk about all of that, and then I'm starting to create some more content around like how to actually become a creator and how I started my podcast, and things I wish I would have known, because I went to YouTube University. Like that was very much just how I figured out what to do. And so some things that I wish I would have known, some formulas and advice that I took that I maybe shouldn't have taken, which is actually, you found me on that one video where I was talking about niching, and like I had taken some. I don't no advice is bad. If it's good intentioned, I don't think it was bad advice. It just wasn't applicable to me, and it was, kind of sold as this like broad stroke, like this is what everybody needs to do, and it really is not that case. So I'm kind of talking some more about that as well in my profiles, like how to kind of avoid some of the stuff that I fell into when I first started into the world as a creator.
And that's always a good thing. Sharing your experiences and what in the struggles. I mean, uh, obviously people have to fail to succeed, but if you give them pitfalls to, minimize that, or at least take more, what is it, calculated risks, I
Mhm.
think it's better. I mean, eventually somebody's still going to fail because no one's experience is the same. Like you cannot like have a similar experience from, I mean, me and my family, like we don't have the same experience, and we lived together for I don't know how many years. So, it's like you can't expect that from another stranger as well. Well, that's one of the things that, and, if people ask for my opinion, I'll let them know when it comes to this, where it's like, yeah, don't follow this influencer like 100%. You're not trying to be that influencer. You're trying to be you. And it's fine if you want to like get inspiration from them. And that's perfectly fine. And they're doing a good job if they're striving to inspire people. And that's great. But you don't want to get caught up in that trap either, in the sense like, well, okay, if I didn't have this outcome like this person, I failed. Because that not may be true. Like it's one like I don't know if you ever seen the meme where you have two people that are like think they're digging for like precious metals or something, and one person was like close to the end, but he only needs like an inch worth to like dig before he strikes the precious metal, and then he just quits. Whereas the other person goes all the way and finds all the precious
Mhm.
metals and stuff. That's
Yeah.
pretty much how that kind of plays out to a certain degree. Like, okay, you're following this influencer, or you're like you said, like you're listening to well-intended advice, but stuff doesn't happen right away or happens a different way, or sometimes it's the opposite where like it goes a lot better for you because you definitely followed the instructions and you
Yeah.
avoided the pit traps and stuff. So it's really volatile, like how much things changes.
Yeah, for sure. And there's just so much out there. Like that's what I realized when I got into this world because I came in through like the entrepreneur side. It's kind of
Mhm.
funny because there's like the entrepreneurs who like don't want to admit that they're creators or don't want to become creators. They're like, "No, I'm a business person. I don't dance on TikTok," or like they're very kind of against. And then there's like the creators who haven't really built a business necessarily outside of TikTok, like that's where their fan base is and they haven't pulled them off TikTok yet or anything like that. So there's kind of like these two worlds. And I came in through the entrepreneur world and there was just so much information. Like it was, everybody had their signature formula and their signature method and their signature way. And it was just like, it was very overwhelming. And I tried to piece like, all of these different things together. And what finally ended up working for me was I had a lot of the answers. Like I needed strategy. Didn't necessarily know how to like get my podcast onto Apple. Like I had to look that part up. But we all, I think, have a very deep inner knowing of like what our core message needs to be and who we're supposed to be talking to because it's our life. Like you have created this podcast and this platform from your life experience and nobody can tell you what your experience is. Nobody can tell you what people need to hear from you. You have that knowing, like you have that inside of you. And I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, maybe well intending, maybe not, they try to like over formulate that process and it can get a lot of people stuck in these like, oh, but I don't have this one answer to the fill in the blank thing, and we're like, no, like what that answer is. So that was really really helpful for me in my first couple years of entrepreneurship slash creation.
Yeah, and this is great, like what you're doing, honestly, like because there's a lot of burdens that we don't even know as creators that we might like face, like, and sometimes we're carrying that and we don't even realize that how long we've been carrying that burden, like it just it's all this mental fatigue, like honestly, like there's just
Mhm.
a lot of things that just require so much resources, and uh it's good to have you know profiles like such yourself, like social media presences like yourself, to like be like provide like a breath of fresh air, really, because and you can tell like who's genuine, even though, because that's the thing, like people think that just because you're genuine doesn't mean you're not going to make any money, and it's, or you're not
Yeah.
going to be able to have a business or something like that, right? Because they have perceptions of, they have different perceptions that who
Mhm.
knows where they got them from or how they got into their brains, but it's like it's one of those things, like if you build it, they will come, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times, like you can tell like the creators that are genuine and are literally just trying to like either entertain, make people think, help people, by like what you're doing, by you know trying to get them to avoid the pitfalls of content creation and stuff like that. And then you can tell that the people there not necessarily grabbing attention for whatever reason, but like you can tell like who's not really taking that seriously, and who's not really coming off genuine, more or less. Like I think that's like you can tell the difference between the two.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely you can. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, but well, anyway, let's go into the next topic. So again, the reason why I asked you to be on the show, you had that reel about niching. Uh, please elaborate what you meant on that reel, and for those that haven't watched it, explain what that was.
Yeah. So, like I was mentioning, how when I first got into entrepreneurship, I was bombarded with like the formulas and the processes and like how to do, how to get your genius out into the world. And I was told time and time again to niche down. And what a niche was who you help and how you help them. So I was, at the time when I was coming into this, I was a writer, and I had been like, I went to journalism school and I was writing my own blogs. And so I was, being a copywriter. And the coach that I had at the time was like, "Oh, you need a specific kind of copy, like to niche down even further." And I was like, "Okay, well, I really like writing emails, like sales emails." So I started writing sales emails, and then they were like, "Oh, but you also need who you write sales emails for." And I get why they were saying this, like it was helpful for me to market to an extent. But I think there are either some personality types or just some people who, like, that is not the best path. And I really quickly got depressed. Like, I was just not loving my life anymore. I wasn't loving what I was doing anymore, because all I could talk about on social media was like this box of email copy for personal brands. And that was like all I was like. My coach would be like, "Oh, don't post too much about this, don't post too much about that, because it's, confusing your messaging." And so I just was like not excited to show up for work anymore. And just like you're saying, when you can tell if somebody's genuine, you can tell if somebody's happy, and you can tell if somebody wants to be where they are. And I wasn't there anymore. And so I kind of just went through this process of like clearing the table completely and being like, what is it that I like to do? Okay, I love writing. I like all kinds of writing. And maybe that's okay. Let's just like put that over there for a second. And I really like, podcasting and talking and doing interviews. Okay, let's just put that there for a second. And so I kind of like started going through, like my bag of tools as a creator and being like, I like all of these different things. Maybe that's fine. Like, and it was such a weird experience for me, because for 6 years I had had the conditioning of, no, you can't do this. Like, no, you have to have this very strict niche statement. I help this person with with this thing. And I was like, I'm just going to try it. Like, I'm going to experiment. And so I eliminated the second part of that sentence, and I just said, I help creators. And once I got really clear on who creators are and who my person is, and I have a very clear image of my creator, and it takes on all different forms, but I know that they at some point maybe have struggled with anxiety, they have struggled with being multi-passionate or having different interests, and they've kind of struggled with like how to fit all of that into something. They have an entrepreneurial spirit. Like, I know a lot of things about my person. And from that place, I realized I could create content in all different areas, in all different mediums, in all different methods that was applicable to them and that was helpful for them. And that, like, immediately I got my spark back, and I got back to a place of like enjoying to show up for work and enjoying to get out of bed and like do what I was setting out to do in the first place 6 years ago. And so it was it's such a small tweak, and maybe somebody who didn't go through all the conditioning that I went through wouldn't see how big of a shift it was. But for me, to niche down is really just about who you're serving, and the way that you're going to serve them is going to change. It's going to change with the world. It's going to change with the climate of how everything is. It's going to change with what you're experiencing in life and what you're, coming up with as you go down. It's going to explain, or it's going to change even once you start talking to your avatar more and more and more, because they'll tell you, I need more about this, or I want to learn more about this. Like, it
Yeah.
gives you so much more room to play and evolve. So that's kind of how I started talking about the niching game to begin with.
Yeah, it's I think I mean, you said it pretty good. I can't really I can't really say it any differently. Because I can only tell from my experience that I got lucky very early. I mean, I'm very fortunate in the sense that when you're saying that you can tell when you're happy, like when I first started this whole fishing thing, like I originally set out a dedicated page for that. Um, Immediately I was not happy with how I was going with it. Like posting like, hey, I like this rod. Hey, this. And I'm like, I don't like this. Like, it's like, and basically what I did was just my personal one, I basically unfollowed all the interests and stuff and everything that I had, and just kept people that mostly like from like my high school friends and stuff like that, kept the ones that I still kept talking to. And then just started posting fish pics on there. Like, and then eventually posted hiking stuff, and eventually posting like, archery and a bunch of other stuff. And it just felt better. Like, it just felt better. Like, yeah, like I didn't really bother like, oh yeah, this post did not do well. Well, it's a hiking post. I'm not going to post hiking posts ever again. Like,
Yeah.
like it's not like that anymore. It's just about, because I think when you're looking at like in your case, you were helping creators and that was what became your focus. Like, I think I'm trying to portray that it's like, okay, life is not all as bells and whistles like as I make it out to be on my Instagram. I have my issues, and the all these activities that I'm doing on my Instagram are helping me to like be well, be mentally well, and that's kind of like where now like that's what I'm not even trying to project. I'm just, if it flows that way, it'll flow that way, and
Yeah.
I don't have like, oh, like I only post fishing pictures on my posts and fishing stories and all that stuff. Like, no, like whatever. Like sometimes I'll throw in a cooking video here and there. Like I haven't done one in a while, which I need to do because I have ideas. Well, so one of the things that I wanted to do was I want because this past February I caught my very first trout on purpose because I've caught one on accident and that did not go well on social media either. But anyway, um, so on purpose I caught them, right, and I'm like, okay, I ate them. They're pretty good. But I'm like, the next fish that I catch, like I'm gonna turn that into a cooking video because I like to cook. I like to smoke, meats and stuff like that. So I was like, I'm gonna just try and make some smoked trout ceviche and see how that goes. Well, I did not catch a single trout after that. So I'm like, oh, I hope that's not a sign that I should not be doing things like this. Because I didn't catch a single trout. Like, what the heck?
Oh, no, that sounds awesome though. To like that's a great segue to go from here's what I caught to here's how I prepared it. Like I think that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, people know now, like the ones that like follow my story, that I like to cook, and a few people have mentioned like, why don't you just start a cooking channel? I'm like, well, I have a YouTube channel. The problem is, all I do is, well, I mean, it's not really much of a problem, but the only thing that's on there is basically my podcast right now. I have one blog where I went hiking, but that's the bad thing about Texas. There's not a whole lot of places to hike that are within driving distance. Like I have
Mhm.
to actually plan a
Yeah.
whole trip. But I plan on putting cooking stuff on there. I plan on putting like how-to videos, not necessarily how-to videos, like just how I went about doing things. And if you learn something from it, then that's amazing. But at the very least, I just want to entertain people on there. So yeah, so that's basically kind of what you're saying. Like it's not necessarily a niche per se, but then just posting. I'm posting stuff to basically like, hey, these are activities that maybe you want to get into.
Yeah. And I think, the person who's interested in maybe learning about your fishing and maybe they want to start fishing too, that person is going to be interested in the stuff that you're posting about fishing. They're going to be interested in the hiking stuff because maybe they had to hike a little bit to get to wherever they're fishing. And then if they want to consume what they caught, they're going to be interested in the cooking, and I think it's very much like it all works under one house. And I think the previous like iteration of the internet, it was very much like you create an account for your fishing, you create an account for your cooking, you create an account, and it was very like silo, like everything lived kind of in these like walls, and you had to just keep it there. And that's how accounts were growing. Like that's how things were going viral. But now people are following creators because they've created and curated this lifestyle for themselves that people find interesting and useful and valuable to them. And so now it's very much like a holistic view. Like I think about the people who I follow and they are very rounded, like Shalene Johnson is a great example. Has she talks about ADHD, she talks about running a business with ADHD, but she also talks about like patient rights because she had a really unfortunate experience with a surgeon. So she talks about that. She talks about all these different things. And I get value from all of those different things because I'm her avatar.
That's interesting. That's an interesting way of putting it. Like that you're her avatar. Like I just the first time I've heard that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that, see, like this is why I knew I had to follow your Instagram account. Like I already knew I'm gonna be learning stuff, and I'm already learning stuff now. So yeah, it's great. Good. I mean, because just overall, like I think what you're saying is pretty spot on. That like there people are looking for creators to either get inspired and or just to see like what kind of experiences are out there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think because it's like we're all kind of connecting with these creators almost on like a friend level. Like for a while, it was very, the influencers were like up here and they were, these very filtered and inaccessible kind of almost celebrity type figures. And it was not, they were maybe getting a ton of views, but there wasn't like a ton of value that was being added. And then when this whole like creator economy kind of came in, these creators were a lot more down to earth is not the right word, but they were a lot more like focused on how can I serve my audience versus how can I serve the brands that I'm working with. And it changed things. It really did, because people started to connect with the whole person, the whole creator, and the creator was coming down and working in their community and messaging people back and DMing people back. And so I think it's really kind of started to change the landscape of social media as a whole.
Mm-hmm. I mean, no, yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. Really quick before we wrap things up, like I'm now that we've had this like almost an hour conversation, I'm kind of curious to ask you your opinion on one thing. So for sometimes like for like the creators that like have to post like every little detail about their life, what's your opinion around that per se? Like, I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but yeah.
I think if it's working for you and you're getting a response from your community, great. It's not something I love to consume because I don't love getting onto social media and feeling like I'm behind. And if I log on and I click on somebody's story and there's like 17 stories, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm behind on everything. I gotta like click through and watch the whole thing. I'm probably not the avatar for that, but I do think some people it works for them. So I think that's one of the beautiful things about creators in this whole creator space is, I mean, people have found success and have given value to their audience by the most random things. You know, like there's the accounts that they only purely react to other videos online and they wear the same hoodie the entire time, like just pages and pages of them wearing one hoodie reacting to videos. And people love it, you know. So I think there's as much opportunity as there is the internet. You know, it's wide. So it's not my style necessarily, but I think it works for some creators. So more power to them.
Well, what was that perfect example with that one dude that he basically makes fun of like he takes videos of people oversimplifying stuff and he makes fun of them by trying, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
I know exactly. Yeah.
oh my God, it's just, I can't get enough of that. Like, and it's just hilarious. But the reason why I asked, because like me personally, I never wanted to get to that point where I have to like document every little aspect of my life on social media. It's not necessarily because like I don't feel important or nothing like, or I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily judging, like you said, like not judging those people that are doing it, especially if it works. But it's just like, I don't know, like who the heck is gonna care about me like waking up and do, oh, I'm brushing my teeth this time or something, like, obviously I'm exaggerating. That's not how,
Mhm.
most of that stuff goes, but like,
Yeah.
stuff like that, like I don't really like see like me like provide any value to that. Like I've had, health issues or stuff like that. I never really posted them on Instagram because it's like it's something that I need to take care of. I'm only here, and I guess it goes back to what we're talking about, like who you're serving and all that stuff. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm just here to like basically not. I'm not trying to put up a front or anything like that. But if you don't see me posting, it's for a reason,
Mhm.
And if I'm posting a lot, it's because things are going well. It's not. It's not, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be like, oh well, I got to come from this unless there's like a deep story behind it, like like. And to me,
Mhm.
to me, a lot of that stuff hasn't really happened yet. It's been more of an issue where like, yeah, I was dumb for doing this thing and I got hurt because of it. So it's my fault.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I think takeaways, if there's a takeaway for the audience, like that's one way I have, helped like kind of understand what to post and what not to post on social for me is like, is there a takeaway for them? Or is there not? Like if I'm going through, I just started improv class, which is like, I wasn't going to post about it because I was like, that's so random. But enough entrepreneurs told me like I took improv and it helped with my stage presence and it helped with my presentation and it helped with my webinars. Like my webinar sales went up because I got more comfortable being on camera and being seen and interacting with people in the comment section because I was interacting with people in improv. So it's like I found the direct connection there. And so I started posting about that. So it's kind of just like starting with your human in mind, and like human focused marketing is essentially what it is. Like, will it be helpful for them? And, and if not, leave it off. And if yes, then great. And you can always ask them too. Like, I think a lot of creators, we try to play the guessing game. And like my audience, I've been very direct with them and like, do you want to learn more about this? Like, I'm doing this crazy thing over here. Do you want to learn more? And if I don't get a response, I just won't post about it again.
Yeah, like I'm not afraid of wearing a Pikachu hat. Like, if you check out my posts and stuff like that, like they'll be there. And it wasn't like something that I did to get attention. Like that hat I bought, I don't know how long ago, and then randomly I found it one time, and one time I just happened to catch a fish, and I didn't realize I had it on, and it just became a thing where I'm like, all right, well now I'm just gonna wear it just for the sake of wearing it, but I'm not like trying to get attention. It just happened organically. And
Yeah.
I
Yes,
think that
exactly.
yeah, and I think that's kind of what I want to strive for, just organic interaction, organic experiences, and just being genuine, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
exactly.
sorry, I actually accidentally muted myself. So okay, last 5 minutes. Any final thoughts, takeaways that you want to, reiterate or emphasize?
I think really just what I found as I was like trying to decide where I wanted to take this brand as a creator, what I was going to do like to build my whole business, what really really helped me was identifying what I liked doing and who I liked talking to. And it sounds like so simple, but when you think about, because a lot of times like we get paralyzed when we think of like, who's your ideal customer, who's your ideal avatar, do they need the problem you're solving for them, like, and it gets really, you're just trying to find like it's almost like you're trying to find the answers to a quiz that you're being given. And so for me, like, I had to boil it down and be like, who do I like talking to, like just in general in life, who do I find the most, like, we've talked for 56 minutes now, and it doesn't feel like that because we're talking about all kinds of great stuff and we're similar and we have similar values and similar things that we're doing online. And so I was like, those people are my people. Cool. What can I do for them? So like a lot of online marketing and a lot of business and a lot of creation can really be boiled down to that. And creators won't love, or entrepreneurs won't love that I told you that, because they'll try to charge you like 1997 to get that information. But it's something that's really been powerful to me to learn, that I just can understand these really core fundamental things in the business and the strategy, and everything else will just follow from that.
1997. So yeah, that made me laugh when when you said that. I was just kind of like I had to mute myself because I was coughing for some odd reason. But yeah, all right. Well, no, yeah. I mean, I think you being on is definitely has been great, and you have definitely a lot of like positivity to you, and that's great. And I think we need more of that. I mean, not the world isn't sunshine and rainbows. It's it. Unfortunately, it's not as nice as people want it to be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be as bad as people think it could be. Like, it's out there for you to really make it your own. And I think it's one of those things where if you put out good energy, you will get good energy in return.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when things seem the darkest, you might not realize that the sun's about to like the clouds are passing by and they're like about to like let the sun come through. So that's one of the things with like my whole, I guess you could say, brand or whatever. With the reason why I chose like my, I don't know how to say it, like, but the New Age Alchemist thing, that started off as a gaming tag.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, it progressed into like having more meaning to it, where it's like it's something that's not really. It's I mean, the word alchemy is old science, right? Basically, and
Mm-hmm.
but I think that in today, like in the world we live in today, we can realize and we can really apply some of those principles where it's like you're only going to get like if you're going to produce something like cooking is a perfect example of alchemy. If you want a really great tasting dish, you need to get really good ingredients, and you're only going to get the dish that you get by the ingredients that you put in, the amount of work that you put in to actually cook the food, and all that stuff. It's the same thing with life, and especially with experiences out in the outdoors.
Yes. Yeah, I
So,
100% agree. Yeah.
so all right. Well, we hit the hour mark. Thank you so much. Like you said, it flew by really quick. let the audience, for those that are still watching and listening, where they can find you.
You can find me at Brittany Bailey, Bayley, on Instagram, and my podcast, Sit with Britt, anywhere that you listen to podcasts.
And then you also have a website too, right? Like I did see that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, BrittanyBailey.com will give you all the info on what I've got going on for creators, for podcasters, all of that.
Perfect. All right. Well, stay on for like 2 minutes after we pause the recording. But for those that are still watching, listening, thank you. We appreciate your support, and see you in the next episode.